Hi, everyone. Welcome to the user group. Thank you so much for joining. Today, we are going to discuss about how do we navigate about Coveo Frontend framework for the Sitecore integration, because we have a lot more options available. Let's start discussing. And who we are. Bala, would you like to go?
Hey everyone, Bala here. 5x Tech MVP. Mostly started my career with Coveo development, so I've been always passionate about doing Coveo stuff. I'm also a practice director at CA, specifically working on digital marketing and Sitecore.
Thank you, Bala. Here myself, Madhu Anbalagan. I'm a 6-time Sitecore Technology MVP and a Coveo MVP and DXC MVP. Currently working for Principal Architect at Infosys. Here are the handles. You can follow me in Twitter and my personal blog, and always available on LinkedIn. And with this, let's get started. So with Coveo, we know that it's a search. So it starts with the crawling and indexing. So basically with crawling and indexing, we have like a lot more options available. Basically, you can crawl anything with any sources. It could be a third-party one. It could be a Sitecore website. It could be a Jira, YouTube, Slack. I mean, any source of truth you want, we can crawl. But basically, everything comes into two different categories. One with an sitemap crawler, another with an API crawler. So with basically with these two crawlers, we can pick and choose which one will fit into our needs. I will show a demo of how do we do the sitemap crawler and as well as the API crawler. Both of them are pretty easy. Each one comes with its own pros and cons. So if we wanted to quickly discover something, we can go with a sitemap crawler. If we want more control on the JSON-based schema, we could go for an API crawler. And sitemap crawler generally comes with an autofield population. So we don't need to define the fields and everything. Once we give the website, basically, it automatically detects the sitemap. And then when we say, okay, switch to the sitemap, it automatically switches to the sitemap and it populates everything for us. We don't need to define the fields. We don't need to define the facets. I mean, everything will be taken care automatically. And the index management as well, like in Coveo, we have we can schedule a rebuild with periodically with given interval, or we can rescan the operations. We can define our indexing strategy, that whether we want every day morning, it should be fresh, or every 10 minutes, or every, I mean, we can define based on the needs. So this is all about the crawling and indexing, but I'll go through everything in detail in the demo. Please let me know if I'm going super fast. And the next one is like resource snapshots. The resource snapshots is quite a good one. I personally love it because it basically takes a snapshot. As its name says, it's a snapshot one. It basically takes the complete snapshot of your complete index, which you could say, for example, if you are on a lower environment, like non-prod environment, and then you wanted to send the same index to the production, the resource snapshot makes it much more easier and smoother. Like within few minutes, we can migrate from lower to higher environments in few minutes. And as well as if you're playing around and different organization, like completely out of your company, like on your Gmail account, when you have Coveo provides a trial accounts for your Gmail, or for 14 days trial period. So when you're exploring something, you feel like, oh, this external source is good thing for our website. If you wanted to bring it in, we can bring it in through an JSON export as well. Like so inside the cross org, we can just transfer the indexes pretty quickly within few minutes. If it is outside of your org, still you can do it through that JSON export. I will show like how to do that, the JSON export, because I don't have a like non-prod and prod environment, but I would love to show the JSON export to show that like how easy to take a snapshot and retrieve it on the other end to create another organization, or promoting it to an other prod or UAT or any environments. With this, let's jump into a demo. Here I have the Coveo site, and we have trial account for our PGHSUG demo organization. So here we have already crawled Bala's blog and my blog. So Bala's blog was done by sitemap, and my blog was done through API. So as we get into it, this is how the admin console and everything looks like. I think it's going to an thing. Let's see. So basically, when we go into the content sources, here is where all the source of truth we go and add. So let me add a source. So here are all the options we have, like the source of truth could be a database, Google Drive, GraphQL API, Jira, like anything. It could be even a YouTube, anything, SharePoint, everything. So here I'm just going through a web, and I'm just going to say that Madhu blog, maybe I'll just say that as sitemap so that we know the difference. And here I'm just going to put in my blog name. And as soon as I put in the blog name, and you can see that it's already recognized it and says that sitemap is detected for your website. Would you like to switch it to the sitemap source? It is better for the index performance and the content freshness. So I'm going to switch it to the sitemap, and it automatically changed the sitemap URL and everything for us. And let's add the source. So here is the security, whether we wanted to add it for everyone or whether we wanted to give it to a specific user and groups. So generally in the project, when we generally go for the specific user and groups. So I'm just going to say for add source. And here you go. We have the source has been added. And now we can just say that rescan the source, rebuild the source. And here it is. It says that it's been added, and it is retrieving the content, and we can see the details of like what happened till now, and it's executing the build. It's going to take some few minutes. Let it run, and we'll come back to this again. So this is all about the sitemap one, which is pretty easy. We just need to give the URL, and it auto detects the sitemap. And once it comes back, I'll show like all the fields and everything. Similar to it, let's explore the REST API, which was already done this morning. And so basically, so for the API, it could be any API, like a weather API or any of the API you would like to integrate. So here I have taken my own personal blog as an API. One second, sorry. Here is my blog. It's a WordPress blog. So I just, I know that like on a API, like for the WordPress blogs, here is the URL that, but it gives like everything as an, all the blogs as in JSON format. So we have taken this URL and did it as an REST API. So basically, let me go inside the, once again, let me go edit. And yeah, here is the JSON configuration where we need to give what is the URL and the path. This is that the WordPress path which we need to give. And whether it's the method is get or post or put, and the rest all is an optional one. So I just left it as it is, and added some error codes as 400. I'll show you like why I added it. So basically here you will be defining like what is your URL path, and what is the page size, and what are the parameters per page. Everything we just need to define. Once we define, we can just say that save and rebuild source. So when I did this in this morning, and One second. So let me go into the details. Basically, myself and Bala, we both did it together. So thanks to Bala for, I was having some hiccups because I kept like receiving the rebuild failed and I didn't know like why it was failing. So basically, when it's trying to rebuild the per page by page 2, so I have only 50 plus blogs and it is trying to like per page is like 10 plus 10 items. So for some reason it was giving the error, and then we added the 400 to escape, and that's when it again went up. But then again another error came out for page 7 because there is no page 7 for it, because I have only 57 to 60 blogs. So when it goes above the page 6, it started failing. So with the API, basically what happens is we need to keep looking like where it is failing and what is happening. But whereas in sitemap, it is so smooth, and you will see in a minute that how it did everything in a jiffy manner. But the API gives more control though. Like we can define our own fields, we can define what to skip, what not to skip, everything we can define in JSON. It fits into like what fits into your needs. And let's see, like here, it's still receiving content. Maybe it takes few more minutes. We'll come back again. And with this, let me go into the search pages, the resource snapshots as well. So basically, the resource snapshot is on, here is the hosted search pages, which we will come to it in a minute. Just a second. I'm just like, I think it's in the organization, I believe. There is a lot of options. Sorry, just a second. Yeah, resource snapshot. Here is our resource snapshot. And so when we go here, we have an option to create the resource snapshot and as well as to import the snapshot. Just a second. Sorry, I don't know why it's taking longer. Yeah, here is our resource snapshots. So basically, we can create a demo snapshot from here, like create a snapshot from your organization. So we have the test organization, and inside the organization, basically we can say like what all the fields we want. We can pick and choose like all the fields, or we can pick whatever we wanted. So this will here it will give like all the options of what fields we want. We can pick everything, and yeah, here is we can just name it as page 8 sub demo, I'll just say. And here we can say like we want the fields and extensions and query pipelines, ML, machine learning models, like notifications, sources. Basically, if you wanted to like mimic the same thing, we'll just pick everything, and we'll just say that create snapshot. It just takes like only few seconds, and it will be done in a minute. It's done. Yeah, it is here. It is just done in few seconds, and we can see that content for the second. something went wrong, but in general, maybe I was rushing, but in general, like here you can see that the show details in JSON, it has like 177 resources, and here is the JSON of your complete index screenshot, like with all the fields, with ML, with recommendations, query pipelines, like everything is in this one JSON. And this is the JSON, like when we need to migrate to another tenant, another organization. So we can just simply download this snapshot, and we can just import it from a file, and we can just choose the file, the same JSON file, and import it. It's going to be in another like few seconds, and it will be uploaded. Like here we have done the import from the JSON file, and you can see that it's the same 177 resources, and it just imported in a few seconds. So migrating from lower to upper environments, or from a different org, it could be done in a few minutes of time. So this is all about the resource snapshots. Let's go and check the sources. Maybe it's still rebuilding. Oh, it already rebuilt. We can see that it has 229 items. So it is still rebuilding, but we can see that it is rebuilding, but we can see the items in the content browser. So when we go into the content browser, we can see that the facets are here, and we can search for the content, and it'll it should filter by Coveo, and we could see that like all Coveo related blogs. So it just takes like few minutes to do it depends upon the website size though. For any healthcare website, it could take an hour or something, but in general, it is pretty fast. But and also once the index is rebuilt, we can always rescan it pretty quickly. So using the sitemap, it just did it in few minutes, which is awesome. And with this, there is another thing called search hosted pages. Just a second. So I just felt like I missed I think there was one more slide, but that's okay. I think Bala, from here, would you like to take over?
Yeah, Madhu, that should be fine. I think the one you missed was related to the JSON for the API.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So if you want to quickly show that, then I will take it over.
Cool. Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks, Bala. Just a second. So, sorry. So basically on my blog, so for the API one, so when we go for, when we see the information, no, I think over here, when we edit, yeah, here is the JSON information, and where we can define our authentication as well. If we wanted to go for a basic authentication or auth 2.0 with bearer token, like anything, it supports like all types of an authentication, and as well as the JSON, which we give the URL and a path, and we can define basically like what all the attributes are going to be here, and as well as we can define the page size and the parameters and everything. So the JSON one gives much more control, whereas in sitemap, it takes like auto-populates everything for you. But if you wanted a more controlled or more defined attributes, we strongly recommend API-based approach. It fits into your needs, like how you wanted to utilize it, but both of it has its own pros and cons. But generally, like the API ones have the more control with authentication and everything. So we went by the authentication for our project. And hope it made sense. With this, I will hand it over to Bala. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhu.
No problem, Bala. Let me stop sharing.
Don't see able to see it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Madhu. It was more related to giving a brief about Coveo, a little bit on the basics of how do you crawl and other things. Let's get into the core of the topic here. And also, one other thing, this meeting, I'm just trying to share my experience with whatever we have done with Coveo project. So please feel free to ask any questions or anything that you have. When we are doing implementation, typically we have it as a quick implementation or a full-blown implementation. Most of the times the clients ask us like how fast you can get it. And it depends on what they need. So if you're doing as a quick implementation, I would recommend it's going to be like 1 to 3 weeks with some basic search sitemap crawlers with not a lot of development involved, I would say, using out of the box search pages. So in this case, search pages, you have hosted pages, and those search pages are typically hosted in Coveo itself. So you can design your page, drag and drop components, do all the stuff there in your Coveo platform, and directly use it in your website. And Madhu was giving a demo on how easily you can add a sitemap crawler. So basically, if you're looking at just like a couple of weeks, you will be able to get everything to a decent production state. It also depends on your simple requirements, so you're not going into detail. Some basic requirements, get into a simple search page and you should be good. So the other approach is also, for example, there might be situations where it is entirely a different platform. So I had a situation where we also had like Sitecore implementation, we had WordPress, and then we had an entirely different site where we need to use Coveo. In that case, we don't have this ready-made Sitecore package installer, things like that. You could go and do it. So in those cases, you could use just a simple JavaScript injection. Basically, you build your Coveo hosted search pages in the Coveo platform, and then eventually use the JavaScript-based injection to render the Coveo search components. So this is the hosted pages. You have a simple builder or a classic interface. Simple builder is using internally the Coveo Atomic framework, and then this is like a web components, lightweight, recommended, and most fastest. If you go into the classic interface editor, it's based out of a JS UI. It's more advanced, but you did get access to the HTML. You can edit things, and it's much more customizable if you really want to get into. And mostly in those cases, it will be more like a developer thing. Simple builder is like any end user can just quickly build a search page. The last one, you can see the developer path. So you can have your own approach and host it somewhere else and use that also. That is also an option. So when you're trying to use with Coveo hosted search pages, if you have installed Coveo for Sitecore, you would have this option as Coveo hosted search page. Coveo hosted search page is nothing but like once you build the page in Coveo platform, you typically get a GUID ID for that page. And then if you have an API token, you should be able to quickly host that. So this is directly adding it in the experience editor. You could do that. So this is the non-Coveo hosted search page implementation. I do have a blog in my blog how to create a page in both ways and how to add a Coveo search interface pretty quickly on your website. So here you can see directly I'm using the hosted search page JavaScript, and then directly you can see that I just need the org ID API key and my page ID, and you give all those three information, and then eventually you use this 2 lines of code, and then you have a fully functional Coveo search interface running on your website. Doesn't matter you're in PHP or it's in Sitecore or non-Sitecore. So you could use this. This is a pretty quick way to get things rolling. So let's talk into what is the full implementation. So when you say full implementation, it's going to be planned at least 6 to 8 weeks. Then there are like 3 different frameworks. You can use Coveo Hive, Coveo Atomic, or Coveo Headless. So there are 3 options that you could choose, and we can go in detail on why would you choose one over the other. And that's the whole idea about this topic. So choosing the right framework. So if you see the search interface builder uses Atomic. Atomic is typically built on top of the headless, and the headless is depending on the REST endpoint. JS search framework is directly dependent on the REST API, and the JS framework is a very old one. It's called the JS UI. That's where it all started. But typically nowadays we don't use JS UI. It's been deprecated and not supported anymore. So the choice would be mostly Atomic or headless. Atomic is like, we'll go in detail. Coveo Hive, like I spoke before, it is a legacy framework, but if you want to just get started something pretty quickly, and if it is Sitecore, it's much faster to get Coveo Hive rolling. It's a Coveo for Sitecore 5 and above. If you install the package, then you get this Hive. It is not supported below 5. Traditional approach, and it doesn't have any more updates coming through. So this is the last version. It's more like, hey, move to headless or Atomic. That's the one Coveo is going to support in future. It's a Sitecore package install. Once you install, you get all the Coveo Hive components that you can directly use. And the best part of this framework is it's experience editor friendly. So all the components are available in the experience editor, which we are used to. So you can drag and drop and then keep moving. So this is a typical Hive structure. You'll have a Coveo UI, then you have a frame header. I don't want to read each section, but you have this kind of a structure laid out, and then you can add each one of those components. If you're looking into the experience editor, that's how it's going to look into. On the left, you can see I have a simple sample from the Coveo documentation here. So once you create a page, and then you have global parameters and the local parameters created. And in global, you can see everything is has its own resource group, kind of a resource folder, and then you create each one of those data sources within those folder. On the right-hand side, if you see when you start building the components or adding the Coveo components to the page, then eventually you will be able to data source them. And that's how simple Coveo search with Coveo Hive you can implement it. Moving on to the next one is Coveo Atomic framework. Coveo Atomic is more like a web component library, which is much more modular and latest framework. It uses all the modern web standards. It's deployable in React, Angular, Vue, or even vanilla JavaScript. A lot of I'll just quickly show you a demo on that, and there is a comprehensive documentation on how this can be implemented. So the only main drawback I see personally with the Atomic framework is internally it uses Shadow DOM. If you have not heard that, it's basically when you say in a web page you have an iframe that loads an entire different page into it, but the main page cannot access iframe, or iframe cannot access the parent page. So something similar to that. When you say Shadow DOM, the styles are encapsulated within the Shadow DOM. So anything that you're applying at the page level, or more like I have a theme that is applying across the board at the page level, will not be affecting the components within the Shadow DOM. Okay, so what is the problem? Like, that's fine, that's good, right? The main problem would be like, if in this case, like Coveo is implementing all those components, if they have not exposed a particular class, then you will not be able to access that class or make any changes to those classes. That's the main drawback. At least personally, we ran into. We had simple interface, we didn't have issues, but we had more customized templates and interfaces. Then we ran into this problem of maintaining the styles was a little more complicated compared to what we could do. So in one of those cases, we implemented Atomic. Then we eventually figured out it's not our right fit, and then we moved away back to headless, which gave us much more flexibility. So like I said, Coveo Atomic is built on top of Coveo Headless, and Coveo Headless internally talks to the Coveo API. On the right, you can see the complexity. Atomic is much easier because you have all the web components. Quickly, you can use them. Then once you go to Coveo Headless, you have to do all the stuff. And then if you're directly interacting with the API, it gets much more complex. So here is a simple example of Atomic implementation. So in this case, you can see this is more closer to a JS UI implementation that I showed you earlier. But the only difference you can see in the first line, the script type is a module, and then it is directly coming from the Coveo CDN, and then you're referring their themes, and then directly you're having all these interfaces being defined with a particular class, which is here, and then automatically the query selector, you're picking up the interface, instantiating that, and doing an execute first search. It's as simple as that. It's not super complicated. If you look into the body, then you're having all these Atomic search interface, search box, facet manager, different facets. You can have pager, whatever we want, and add all those components. Looks like an out of the box HTML tags. So this is the new way of doing with the modern framework of using all your web components. That's why they call it as. So if you see the styling, in this case, you can say clearly it is an Atomic facet if you want to, style this part. And that's how you need to navigate and style. It gets a little bit more complicated. And if it is not exposed, then there is no way that you can access it or style it. So that is a major drawback that we are seeing. Moving on to the Coveo Headless framework. So this is more like a React component library, and it's pre-built with material UI components. It's fully customizable, a lot of flexibility in the integration side of things. You have search controller, state management is built in. I will quickly show you that. And also keep in mind with specifically to Coveo Headless framework, the code base is available in GitHub. So you're not building everything from scratch. Rather, you can take that as a baseline and then start building on top of it. Do a quick demo. Let's start with the Coveo Atomic example here. Like I said, I have the module style sheet defined here. And this is where your interface is being executed. And then if you go further down, so you have the search box, facet manager, and different facets here, which you can see on the side. So it is pretty straightforward. You can directly see on the sorry. So on the left hand side, you don't have a lot of code here. That's a simple HTML which has all this HTML definition for the page, and then it has like few lines of JavaScript. That's nothing complicated here. And also all the styles you can see. This is the body level styles here, and then specifically for Atomic related, you can see the which part you are affecting, and all those things are available here. Makes sense. So moving on to the next one, and this is a fully functional, and this is from Coveo's documentation. So nothing fancy here, but you can directly go and explore it yourself. All this is a fully functional web-based modules. You can see that. Okay, moving on to the next one is a Coveo Headless with Material UI. And on the left, you can see there are components, and every single component you are defining. Like I said before, everything is available in GitHub. Let's take a simple one, like a search box. And you can see it's done in React. You have all the state maintenance, you are pulling it from the headless. And then you have certain pieces that you have defined it here. And then you have a but basically, if you notice here, you are using autocomplete. These are all like the material UI components, like the text field, icon button, and a lot of other things are from material UI. But the rest of all, you have to maintain the states. You can see the set status here, and you're defining like subscribing for the events. So a lot of these things, it looks complicated, to be honest. But if you are taking this from their GitHub repository, which I'll show quickly, then if you're taking that as a baseline and then start building, then you can clearly see there is a lot of flexibility here. And then you can play with your styles, however you want to design it. I specifically recommend this will be more if you have a lot of customization that you want to play around, then Coveo Headless would be your best bet. But if you are just using a basic search interface, I don't want to spend a lot of time in development, Atomic is the way to go. And Coveo personally always recommends to go with Atomic unless if you really need to do all this customization. On the left, you can see which one I wanted to show. So engine. So whenever you're talking Coveo Headless, it always starts with an engine. That's where you configure your organization ID, your access token, everything is built. And then the context is being set. Once you go into the search, so each one of this, like if you take a facet or anything, the first thing they will do is to take that engine, and that's where it all starts. Like, one moment, let me try to find that one. Yeah, this is the one. Okay. So here you can define the search box. You can see the tabs are defined, the headless material or whatever you're seeing here, everything is being defined here. And the first thing, if you noticed, headless engine dot dispatch. So you need to have that headless engine. That's the core of your headless whenever you're doing anything. And then you're saying like, hey, headless engine dispatch, like do the execute search. Hope that makes sense. And then you can have individual, for example, if you take this tab as its own component, you can see what state, when you click what you need to do, everything is being defined here. So each one of these components are defined here. I'm going to detail on each components. And if you go back into the GitHub project, this is the one I was talking about. And this is Coveo's UI kit. You can see this packages, headless search controllers. Everything is available here. So you can see the search box, even with the suggested query fit suggestions. They have all the code available here. So you can take this as your baseline and start your project. So you're not building everything from scratch. And also if you search engine. Yeah, result list is the other one I was saying. So even this option you can see with the SSR, with the regular interface, all the code is available here. Anything you can see the search engine is being exposed, or you need to pass that as a parameter whenever you're doing this results list. Then you can also see the query summary component that is also available here. So most of the code is available, but you can understand like how complicated it gets. Like you need to take each one of these components. I need a pager, then you need to define the pager component, and in the pager component you can see all the different states are programmatically mentioned here, like the next page, previous page, all these definitions. So it gets a little bit more complicated. It's more developer focused. You need to do a lot more stuff to get this Coveo Headless working. So getting into the mix, like what is the best choice? Why should we go? So you can choose between either go with the Atomic approach. If you don't want to do a lot of coding, you could just refer those two JavaScripts and define the components and directly use them. The second option, if you want to go all in, I want to have it too much customized, I have a lot more requirements, then you can see there is a sample implementation here, how easy it can be. But you can clearly see it's not web components, it's all written in React. You need to do all this stuff. Basically, you have to do a lot of development work to get this running. Okay, that's all we had. And my personal experience with I've done all four implementation. I would say JSUI, it's been legacy now, so you don't use it as much. If it is Coveo for Sitecore, honestly, I recommend you can use Coveo Hive. but also keep in mind it is deprecated. You won't get updates, but that is also one way, or like one quick way to do it. The recommended approach by Coveo is using Atomic. I'm completely fine with that. Atomic is much faster. It is close to what you can do with JSUI, but it's more modern JSUI, I would say. Basically, everything is web components and modules. That will be a perfect fit if you are really having a limited customization. You're good with that. But if you have a lot of customization, a lot of styling, those kind of things. I think also another thing I want to add on top of Atomic was we had an accessibility requirement, and Atomic was not fully accessible with the WCAG 2.1. So that was another reason we want to have the ARIA tags and a lot of other things. So we ended up going with headless. The last option is headless. If you have the time and development team to do that stuff, headless might be a best bet if you need a lot of customization, and if you're in an industry that is more regulated and you need accessibility and a lot of other compliance, then the way to go is headless. Let's discuss. We are open to talk. Please unmute, and if you have any questions, we can talk through it. Mark, did that give you an overview? Any questions around that?
Yeah, that was a good walkthrough. In the sources, you didn't show any examples with using a source as Sitecore. You used the source as sitemap or APIs. If you were doing a Sitecore Coveo project, would you normally use a Sitecore source?
We would typically use a Sitecore source, Mark. The main reason we were talking is the trend going towards XM Cloud. There is no more option of Sitecore source. That's the reason we showed it as an API or a sitemap, because those are the two options that you could use a GraphQL endpoint,
right?
XM Cloud, and you can do it. But that's a good question. So once you install a Sitecore for Coveo package, then you will have the master web and the core database directly getting crawled, and then you will see those sources as a sitemap source. And all the field definitions and everything, you will start working with your pipelines, everything mostly coming from your C# project. But if you're doing with XM Cloud, that is another thing I'm recently exploring, is there is an option to have your pipelines and everything defined directly on the Coveo platform using Python scripting. There are like extensions. There is an option there in Coveo. Whenever an item is passing through the, whenever an item is being crawled with an API endpoint or a sitemap endpoint, it goes through the pipeline where you can have Python scripting to manipulate or massage the data before it goes into the index.
So it goes through what pipeline? A Sitecore pipeline?
No, hold on.
Coveo pipeline.
Let me try to open it.
The other question is, so I guess also if you're with Sitecore XM Cloud, is the Coveo for Sitecore 5, is that even an option?
No, it is not.
Yeah.
It's not option. So that's what, like, this talk is more inclined towards what's the near future, what we are doing today. Mostly you have to go with, the headless or Atomic. Coveo for Hive is not even an option in XM Cloud. So to answer your question, which one is that? So you see this extensions here. So if you hit on add extension, you can see this extension script is a Python scripting. Then you can say, like, select additional item data and extension needs access. So you could say, hey, I want access to these things. If you have anything like a secured one, it needs to go through the vault parameters. You can keep that. And then you can say test. So to answer your question, whenever an item is passing through, it's going to go through this. And in this, you can manipulate. The main scenario, what I might run is, if you take any of these blogs, for example, if you see all this header information, which typically you need to trim, and at the same thing, if you go to the bottom, you have this footer. Take any public facing site. So you don't want to recrawl this content. So most of the time we will have a no index section, which we will skip these content and not go through it. And that will be mostly done in your Sitecore pipelines, where you will do it in the C#. But think about your crawling a content in XM Cloud. Everything is here. You don't have C# access. So that is where you will make use of these extensions, and you can go into this, you can have your script, and you can have access to every information that's passing through the pipeline, and you can manipulate the data. So there is a lot of documentation around this. It's going to be its own topic, but someday we'll talk through this. This is something I was exploring specifically in an XM Cloud scenario, or I'm crawling a WordPress site. In this case, like both the blogs, whatever you're seeing here, one is in Ghost and one is in WordPress. Like we don't have C# access. Like how do I trim the data or do any manipulation? That time this becomes handy. Be interesting. You can explore this option.
A lot of times with the traditional computed fields to kind of make more complex things in the index.
That is correct.
How would we do that on XM Cloud?
Computed field is also going to be the same. This is the only option we have. Or the other option I was also exploring is to have a proxy kind of a thing where that will crawl your data, but it becomes a little bit cumbersome. But for example, you can have an Azure Function app, for instance, that will talk to the XM Cloud, get the data, massage the data, do your computed fields, or add your additional fields, remove the fields, whatever it needs to do. That gives much more flexibility if you're from the Microsoft tech stack. And then you can have your Coveo crawl from that endpoint, so that you're not dealing with Python and other things. If you're comfortable, yeah, please, this will be the only option that we could do. But if you, we just need to see how much of this becomes much easier when you're having Azure Function apps. Then you're dealing with another application and doing it, but it gives you much more flexibility if you want to take this pipelines and other things outside of Coveo. So both options are available. Computed fields, pipelines, anything that we used to do with Sitecore, with C#, then things are going this direction.
Thank you.
Answered. Okay, perfect. Any other question, Mark?
No, this was good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Abhi, Vijaya, any thoughts, any questions?
Quick question on the source. The source wise, this is just an observation, okay? When we are installing the Sitecore package and when we are putting the Coveo package, I mean to say, and that time it was asking the organization, and by default it was creating the source, which is nothing but our site itself. And I can see it is crawling our Sitecore site. And I see the number of indexes getting created and all. So every time we had a lot of problem with the installing the Coveo package because we have a Docker and all. But yeah, that one and the one you were telling just now, are they two different things or?
Yeah, the one I'm telling here is totally different. That was another question from Mark as well. So if you're installing with Coveo package and specifically with Docker, the whole setup is totally different. So in that case, you need to expose, the Coveo configs should be in your storage or your disk. And then every time the Docker comes up, then it needs to pick up the, the config file. That's the reason it will not create an instance every single time you're booting it up. So that's more on your development environment. You need to configure in a way that it uses the configuration which was stored, and then you're not recreating it every single time. So that is totally different from the sources we are talking here. Is more related to the XM Cloud, where you need to specifically do things with API endpoints, because you cannot install a package in XM Cloud for Coveo, because it's also, again, running on containers internally. So that's the reason they say like either you crawl with sitemaps or you crawl the GraphQL endpoint directly from the edge.
Okay.
Hope that answered you, or further questions?
That's answered me.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are perfect on time. Any other questions? If we're not, thank you both for joining us, and we'll see you again next month with another topic.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Really
Bye.
appreciate it.
Yeah, bye.